Good day. Hi, I'm the lone journalist for KRAZ-TV and another great book review. It is a great book. I just hope the review does justice to it. It's called Invisibility. The history of science on how not to be seen. Let's see. The history and science of how not to be seen. It's by Yale University Press. It's by, now I know I'm going to butcher this guy's name. I just know it, but I'm going to attempt it. Gregory J. Gbur, or Gbur. When I have to do two different pronunciations, I've already butchered it. Well, there's his picture. He is professor of physics and optical science at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. He is the author of Falling Felines and Fundamental Physics, and he writes 2 blogs on horror fiction, physics, and nature. Anyway, a lively exploration how has invisibility gone from science fiction to fact. Is it possible for something or someone to be made invisible? This question, which has intrigued authors of science fiction for over a century, has become a headline-grabbing topic of scientific research. Science writer and optical physicist Gregory J. Gbur traces the science of invisibility from its sci-fi origin in the 19th century writing of authors such as H.G. Wells, Fritz James O'Brien, to modern stealth technology, invisibility cloaks, and metamaterials. He explores the history of invisibility and its science and technology connections, including the discovery of the electromagnetic spectrum, the development of the atomic model, and quantum theory. He shows how invisibility has moved from fiction to reality, and he questions the hidden paths that lie ahead for researchers. This is not only the story of invisibility, but the story of humankind's understanding of the nature of light itself, and of the many fascinating figures whose discoveries advanced this knowledge. Well, that is certainly true. What a great little book. It's got a few diagrams in it. He first starts out by explaining some of the early works on he said there is no reason for any individual to have a computer in their home. This was Ken Olsen, founder of Digital Equipment Corporation in 1977. So he's got little quotes at the start of every article. But he goes into the early history, invisible rays, and things like that. He talks about Young, Newton, and some of the early Faraday. He talks about the early optics and how some of the early scientists did the visual reflection and refraction of objects in light. Then he goes into the Faraday and Maxwell equations, and then he goes into Oersted, and then he goes into some of the later people, which inspired him to become an optical scientist himself. So Emil Wolf is one of his great mentors, and it shows a picture of him in here with Dr. Wolf. So it's 2 PhDs. I don't know if it's easily found or not. But it really boils down to deceiving the eye, because the object's still there. One of the biggest and one of the earliest things that they found out was from the double imaging in calcite, optically pure calcite. It's called bifringence. So anyways, even to this late date, they've come out with some of the cloaking devices which involve this mineral. They take and cut the mineral, and so they make like a dome under it, and by putting the small object underneath that, it actually becomes invisible. Some of the invisible ideas came great, like projecting the light from behind you out straight in front of you. So if you're looking straight at me, of course you'll be invisible or won't be seen. But if you step off to either side, then you don't pick up the actual, because your eye sees light coming straight at you. Light mostly is incoherent. In other words, the light just scatters and goes everywhere, but all light and photons do travel in a straight line. So he talks about how lasers came. The latest work that has been done in this is called metamaterials, and some of them are not even have been discovered or in nature yet. But it's really just about bending light or bathing light around the object. It's like he's using, they say, the theory of the gravity bends light around the object like a sun will pull the light from another star around it and stuff, so you can actually maybe see a little bit behind the sun because of that angle. So it's an amazing story. Anyways, let's see, where was I going with this? Well, we got this book at the Tucson Pima County Public Library, and it's a fascinating story. A lot of the work that did get done got promoted and prompted by science fiction writers. And some of the science fiction writers didn't know how close they actually came to having a good concept of it. So the story has a merging of two disciplines, science fiction, if you call that a discipline, and optical sciences. But it really boils down to electromagnetic spectrums. It talks about the discovery of infrared, ultraviolet, X-rays, and how all of that helped work on this invisibility problem. So I was going to go into something else here. Let's see. Oh, there were two models, the latest ones, by two of the great guys. Here's a picture of the calcite dome, so that the light is bifringent, and is when viewed above, the object does disappear. But there were two scientists in the warping of space that produces a invisible cloak. But they were talking about negative index materials. But there were two. Pendry was one of his names. Here's the picture of Emil Wolf and Dr. Gbur. Anyways, these two guys, one of them, they talk about how the CAT scan got figured out by optical science. They talk about quantum levels, Bohr, and the light being emitted when it drops from a field after an excited atom elevates its atoms out into the higher shells, that when they relax and the energy goes out and it drops back into its normal positioning, that a photon of light is emitted. So there's a lot of associative science and things that go with this. But anyways, one of the latest that he talks about were these two modern scientists of today that came up with two different simultaneous models of nearly the same thing. But he has speculated that in one, when you can't see the object, the person, or let's say you're cloaking a person, the person can't see out either. If you can't see the person can't see the light. But the other model, it is possible for the person to see and not be seen. Let me put it that way. Well, anyways, I could just go on and on, but I'm not very coherent because I don't usually put post-it notes and all of this in here. And I usually just go by telling you how I read this book or what I did read it. So I read every word out of it, of course. And I'm getting now to where I read the bibliographies, all the indexes, appendixes, introductions, prefaces, and and you really learn a lot, and you learn about other people and who he's thankful for, and you see some great names and things like that. So read all the book, and don't just read just the story, because there's so much more behind the story. It's not an invisible problem. But thanks for watching Carrie's ETV, and go to your library and get the book. It's called Invisibility, How History and Science, the history and science of how not to be seen. Thanks for watching KRAZTV.com.